some time because of having cows. Anyway, so in the future, my intention would be to have the executive sessions at the end of the meeting, unless there's some reason to have it at the beginning of the meeting, and then we'll do that at 6:30. Brandon and Olivia, when you do the agenda for that, and you do the executive session, please put it in bold capital letters, and we'll try to give an approximate time of how long that exec session will last, if it's at the beginning of the meeting. Yep. Otherwise, it can just stay in there, we'll do it at the end of the night. Anybody else want to address anything on the board?
Are we hooked up? Are we live with whoever? We didn't check that.
Yes. Yes, we are.
Who's user 011210? Anybody know who that is?
Anne Marie, can you hear us?
They probably need to identify themselves, right?
She says she cannot hear us.
So she can.
She can or cannot?
Yes, I thought I heard can. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Nice.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Ray, you got anything for the board under?
Just in general, the first winter storm's coming tomorrow night and into Wednesday morning. Just a reminder, roads will be slippery while it's storming. So
Cut it out.
just
What makes you?
people to give themselves extra time to be safe and try to get
Man, I wish our highway department would take care of them slippery roads.
That's what we get.
Thank you, Ray.
Just a friendly reminder.
I know.
Welcome to Vermont.
Yep.
Do we have any, this is just the agenda paper, so we're not gonna need any paperwork for tonight, you know? Okay.
Everything's in the packet.
Packet here?
Online,
Oh,
yep.
well, in front of us?
Mm-hmm.
Well, sometimes we have like.
100
looking-
pieces of paper.
I feel kind of empty.
I know,
because
so
we
did
don't have
I.
it.
I thought we were gonna come down to a bunch of paperwork here.
I have some extra paper that I can,
We don't want blank paper.
Let's see, it's red.
like an anchor man.
Yeah.
Okay, so with nothing else from topics not on the agenda, review minutes from the previous meetings. We have 2 meetings. I'd accept a motion to approve the minutes of 10/2/2023 with corrections if necessary.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion's
And I wanna
been-
thank you. They are very good. Much better. She went into basic detail. That's what Dave was looking for.
Yes. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes of 10/2? Hearing none, all in favor of the minutes of 10/2/2023 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I don't think Wendy's with us anymore, is she?
She is not.
She's not feeling well. She did attend the exec session, and if she needs rest, that's fine. We're probably okay. I don't think we have a lot to really do tonight anyway. Do I hear the motion to approve the minutes of 11/6/2023 with corrections if necessary?
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. Do I hear a second?
I second it.
And the second this time is August. Any discussion on the minutes? Everything's really good. Wow. Gold stars over there. We're gonna have to up your pay.
Say thank you twice next time.
Yes. Hearing nothing on discussions, all those in favor of approving the minutes of 11/6/2023 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the motion carries. Do I hear a motion to accept the resignation from the ZBA of Joseph Bublé?
So moved with regret.
Do I hear a second?
If we don't second it, he can't, right?
What's that?
If we don't second it, he can't,
I'm
right?
not sure we can hold anybody hostage.
No,
I was joking around with him and I was like, your duties don't end until your resignation is accepted.
I'll second it.
okay.
Not that I want to, but
I understand his reason for that very well. Motion has been made and seconded with regret. All those in favor signify.
Hold it, don't you go discussion?
Discussion?
Okay, me.
Yes.
So will that leave no quorum on the zoning board?
They do have a quorum.
Okay.
Because there's an alternate.
So there are 2 members left and
I believe it's 1 member and 2 alternates, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know, but you will need to alert the chair of the zoning board to that if they need to be anywhere.
Yep. He's aware, and he'd like to speak to the board on 12/4.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Joseph, for your participation in the town, and I understand how busy and stressful life can be sometimes. It's just a lot on your plate, so I understand why you did this. Vermont Child Financial Assistance Program payroll tax. Brandon.
So starting on July 1st of next year, we will be required to pay a payroll tax of 0.44%. That payroll tax is to support a child care financial assistance program. An employer may choose to deduct and withhold a maximum of 25% of the required contribution from employee wages. So it would be a 0.11%, 0.33% split. With FICA, we do a 7.65% split on the Fed. So Feds, you're allowed to do withhold up to 50%. In the state of Vermont, you can withhold up to 25%. So we can do a 75-25% split. Employees will be required to remit CCC payroll tax payments to the department in the same manner and frequency as they remit Vermont income tax withholdings. So again, this will start on July 1st. We have an estimated $1,077,000 in wages in FY24. If Weathersfield opts for a 0.33% split, the total estimated cost of the town will be $3,555.85. If Weathersfield opts to pay the 0.44% payroll tax, it will cost $4,700. I represented the 0.33% in the budgets that will be proposed tonight, but the board can decide how we proceed.
What do you guys want to do? Go ahead, Dave.
First of all, anything that I know about this bill starts on what, July 1st of 2024?
Yes.
So that would mean that it does not follow the calendar year, that it follows our financial year. That's for starters. Second, I don't want persons to think like they had, at least the last information that I had and studied through this is that there's not going to be childcare available. The state is going to collect this tax for a year and then see how that works out. So this is definitely a work in progress. I talked briefly about it with Brandon about it, and if you think that you can have childcare, or I don't know how much money that this is going to generate, like even in our area, but with and obviously this is going to affect the school as well. For $4,700, I'm not sure what facility and what staff would be able to be assembled for that kind of money. Not much. I mean, think about it.
Well, I'm not sure we have any role in that at this point in time, Dave, because what we have is a law that's been passed, and we are required. I don't disagree with your points, but I don't know that we have any influence in that at this point in time.
But this came out of so I've had a few people, including a couple in the office here, when I paid my taxes, to say that they're kind of they feel strongly about saying, you know, I don't have any children. Why did this happen? Well, I guess we need to ask our people that are representing us, because this was an override of a veto, and this governor had a different plan of funding, not a payroll tax. And that's the reason why he vetoed that bill.
Could we request, our local representative, Harrison, if he voted for this bill, or if he did not, perhaps he could come
You can
explain
look
it?
it up and see if he did.
Well, it would be helpful for him to come explain it if he voted for it.
And more, that's a really good idea, August, because how this, they must have thought about how this was going to be implicated. I mean, how are they going to, or you would hope they would, rather than just throw money against the wall.
Yeah, if he was the lawmaker, whether he voted or not, he was involved in the process and probably has a lot more. He could probably spend 5 minutes briefing us and sharing that with the residents of Weathersfield to understand it.
When I go back to Dave's point of $4,700, and what are you gonna do with $4,700? We're not the only ones in the state paying this money.
No.
It's even, I'm self-employed,
Yes.
and I'm gonna have to pay the whole thing myself.
Not that percentage.
4.5,
It's lower.
it's in here somewhere.
0.11.
Not for,
Yeah, self-employed is different.
I think it is 0.11%.
for, yes, it is. Wage, and 0.11% on self-employed income.
The
So it is,
top
so it'd be the, yes, it took me a minute to find it. But that number, that 47 only represents this entity.
10, yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of businesses, a lot of self-employed people. I mean, this is gonna generate a lot of money. I don't know what that is, but I mean, this is gonna generate a lot of money. Now, how does the state, I don't even know what their plan is for distribution of this money.
That's what I don't think they know yet, because this is going to take another year. So, I mean, I told Brandon, I don't know whether I told you today or not, they bought ads on YouTube under Ben Fuller music for like their 15-second splurge about yay, we have childcare now. That's misleading. We don't have childcare right now. We have a tax.
Who's misleading us?
Whoever bought that YouTube ad.
Come on, take a bite out of that apple, Dave.
I'm gonna make a motion that the town follow Brandon's recommendation of the 33-11 split in the payroll tax for childcare.
Do I hear a second?
I have a discussion on that.
Can't do that until you get the second.
Oh, my
I'll
apologies.
second.
My apologies.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now discussion. Go ahead.
Thank you. Brandon, when's the deadline for providing a decision on this, or is there a deadline?
It goes into the budget, so
Doesn't make any difference, we don't have a guideline.
So
We
it's
have
just
to
part of
do
our
it.
budget
It's
process?
and it's a law
Okay.
that we have to
It's a
follow.
law.
It's a payroll
That was
tax.
just my question.
Yeah.
The only thing we had a choice on was how we were going to distribute
Fund
the
it.
tax amongst the employees in the
Yes.
town. That's it. That's the only thing we had to say in.
Yes.
So Dave made the motion, Kelly made the second. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
All right?
Aye. Motion carries. The general fund, highway fund, and solid waste budget discussions.
yeah, I'm just
Brandon.
going to go through it briefly. I did put a memo on the packet. Did everybody have the opportunity to review it? Sort of, okay.
Skimmed it.
I'll go through it. So the FY25 proposed budget has been assembled for all departments and funds in town. In FY24, there was a 10% increase in the general fund. In FY25, the increase in the general fund has been reduced by 50%, down to a 5% increase overall. Similarly, the change in tax lien was reduced from 16% to 5%. The proposed highway department budget is increasing by 2% overall and 5% on tax need. The reason why it's increasing so much on tax need is because we have been using fund balance to offset tax increases for a couple of years. We're proposing to reduce that to, from 46,000 to 20,000 this year. The solid waste fund has the largest increase this year, including a 3% increase in fixed revenue need and a 17% increase in variable revenue need. The permit sticker will remain $50, so it's not really a fixed increase, won't affect the permit sticker. However, the punch ticket will need to be adjusted by 25 cents on July July 1st. As shown in the solid waste budget, we are seeing the biggest increase in recycling costs. As compared to FY24, we need to increase this line item by 53%. We noticed this earlier in the year and adjusted the punch ticket in time, but it appears that the punch ticket will need to be adjusted again. And that's only to offset our variable expenses, so that isn't chipping away at the cumulative deficit. August Murray, the new select board representative of solid waste, and I held a meeting with West Windsor and Reading last week, and we discussed a plan at the transfer station to try to track how many people are using recycling and solid waste by using clickers. We're going to go out there one day and see if we can do a little bit of research. During the last meeting, the board asked me to research the depreciation schedule for property on our grand list. I did contact the Vermont Department of Taxes, and it's not actually the depreciation, it's the CLA that's affecting our tax rate. So our utilities in town, for example, back in 2020, let's say they were valued at, I believe it was 55 million. Our CLA was 93.94, I believe. So they do an adjustment down 6% on the amount that it's valued at. In 22, that went down slightly, I believe, to 54 million, but the CLA dropped significantly more. So we saw a pretty big hit on our grand list. Well, this past year, it was 80, our CLA was 80 and some change, so we had to adjust, the Department of Taxes adjusted down 20%. So if your value is 60 million, and actually the value went up, it didn't go down, so it didn't depreciate, you have to take 12 million, 20% off of our grand list. It takes that 20% into effect. So until we have our reappraisal, that won't change, unless the CLA goes back to 100% this year without a reappraisal, which I don't see happening. We don't anticipate our CLA dropping any further than it already is, but we can't be completely sure until April. So I use the current grand list as a base as I went through the budget. Our contracted assessor did say that a lot of permits have come in this year, so any decrease or any depreciation should offset this year. But again, people could change their their inventory sheets, and that would affect how much we have in that area. FY23 year-end fund balance. The auditors continue to work towards finalizing our FY23 audit. Currently, we have preliminary year-end fund balance figures. The solid waste fund currently has a cumulative deficit of negative $57,253. Although there's a reserve account for the transfer station of $73,000, the net position of the transfer station is $28,000. So we're getting really close to that $25,000 that's required to close the transfer station. You're required to hold $25,000 in the case the transfer station needs to close, and what that does is it pays for any remaining trash we have on the property, basically bringing the transfer station back to open space. We're only $3,000 away from that requirement. The general fund has a preliminary cumulative unassigned fund balance of $162,000. Keep in mind some of the fund balance was restricted to the FY24 budget, as we use fund balance to reduce the tax rate. Some of it is restricted for annual prepaid expenses and some for potential shortfalls in general fund revenues. At this time, I'm comfortable allocating up to $100,000 of general fund balances in FY25. So I'm proposing $40,000 in general fund tax reduction, $20,000 to police cruiser reserves, and $40,000 to fire reserves. The highway fund has a preliminary cumulative unassigned fund balance of $127,000. Similar to the general fund, some of the fund balance was restricted to the FY24 budget, as we use fund balance to reduce the tax rate, and some of it is restricted for annual prepaid expenses. At this time, we're comfortable allocating $75,000 of that, $20,000 in the highway budget for tax reduction, $40,000 to highway equipment, and $15,000 to highway capital. Allocating the fund balance as described will allow us to fund reserves without the need of special articles this year, while at the same time offsetting further tax increases and allowing for contingencies in our budgets for healthcare cost increases between January 24 and June 24, and potential shortfalls in revenue in the general fund. After we get through the general fund budget, which I'll try to be as brief as possible here, based on the proposed FY25 budget for all departments, the FY25 tax rate has been assembled to demonstrate what the tax rate would look like in the case the board and the town decided to move forward with this budget, and the grading list stays status quo. The municipal tax rate calculation would be 2 cents, 0.0232. And taxes on a $100,000 house would increase by $22.80 annually, or $5.70 quarterly. This is a 3.3% increase between FY24 and FY25. So now we'll kind of go through these departments. The administration budget, revenues in the administration budget, they're quite challenging to estimate. So this is the 5th budget that I've worked on with the town. And it's just really difficult to determine who's going to pay their taxes late and get penalty and interest. It's fluctuated every single year. I've tried to calculate it by doing averages. I've tried to calculate it by looking at our existing delinquencies and interest. Existing delinquencies, but those change. So with that said, they're going to fluctuate each year. We can't really pinpoint human behavior on this. Solid waste and water district reimbursement revenues increased by the 3.2% cost of living adjustment. So as we have the town office that does the accounting, billing, the finance, among other things like grants for the water district. The water district is a separate municipality governed by a prudential committee. They set their budget and have an annual town meeting as well. The general fund charges the water district budget for that support, and as that support increases by the COLA, the revenue that we generate from the water district into the general fund must increase by 3.2% as well. So that is reflected. On the expense side, wages increased by the COLA, and the child care contribution payroll tax was entered at 0.33%. IT services increased by 1%. We negotiated a new contract with Comcast that resulted in a 62% decrease. We're awaiting a response from nonprofits to determine what their appropriation request would be for FY25. For now, we just kept those appropriate special appropriations status quo. The FY25 finance budget, we're proposing an increase in the treasurer's time in the office. There's a lot of financial work that we look forward to working on together, including a full capital plan for all departments. We've started it with the fire departments. I would really like to get that done for all departments, including highway and police. We want to dig into computer replacements and what that schedule should look like, among other things. Improved internal controls and policies, and evaluation of existing financial systems to develop more efficient and transparent reporting of town finance. Over the years, we've endured various changes in our finance personnel. We will continue discussions on the best mechanism for town finance in the future. Town clerk budget, vault fee revenues continue to decrease as people can now use the online system, which is free of charge. There is minor fluctuation in other town clerk revenue based on review of prior years. In the past 12 months, overall, the proposed town clerk budget is proposed at an increase of 4%. Lister's budget decreased to account for the reduced contracted assessor services for 2025. We anticipate beginning the reappraisal in February or March. do have a reserve account that we can use during the reappraisal process, in the case we'd like to hire additional temporary assistants. I did calculate out how much revenue we'll have after the reappraisal, and then I multiplied the amount that we receive from the state each year for the per fossil fee, which is around 15,000 to 16,000, and we'll have plenty of money in the bank as long as reappraisal prices don't go through the roof, to also allow for additional lister services throughout the reappraisal process. FY25 land use budget has increased to reflect the coverage the town needs to adequately operate this office. We recently developed a shared services framework with Windsor and Rockingham. Over the years, we've all been grappling with land use services. We try to hire them part-time, and once people find a full-time job or a better job, they leave. We've hired full-time with benefits, but the wages were a little bit lower, and then we have turnover there as well. So we entered into this shared services agreement, and the goal was to hire people and offer good wages and benefits, and have them take care of multiple towns, and we kind of share that service. And it's been working out very well since we started doing that. The FY25 police department budget, we entered the SIU grant this year. We do have confirmation that we'll receive that grant again. So in the figures that you see, the police department will be different than what was proposed last year, only because we included the $60,000 revenue, and then we showed how we expensed that $60,000 out for comparative purposes between the FY24 and FY25 budget. Overall, this budget is proposed with an increase of 2%, and that does include increases in wages and healthcare. The FY25 emergency services budget has been updated to reflect shared expenditures between both departments. So over the years, we've been trying to identify which expenses both departments share, and then entering them into this emergency services budget. So this year, we put radio repeater fees in there, and then we put dispatching services in there. And those get removed from the fire department's budgets, because what we were doing before is we get one bill for dispatching services, and we were doing the additional work to split it out between both departments, but we think it makes more sense to be in this emergency services budget. I also transferred ambulance services to this budget, and relabeled this budget to emergency services instead of general fire services. This budget includes a $40,000 transfer from FY23 year-end fund balance to fire apparatus reserves. The FY25 West Weathersfield Fire Department budget. The West Weathersfield Fire Department is proposing a $6,700 increase in their department's budget, or an 8% increase overall. The cost of fire boots, fire gear, gloves, and helmets have increased by 3%, 30%, 5%, and 14% respectively. Josh and I went through each of these, and these are the increases for these items that they need. This department tried to offset increases as much as possible, decreasing appreciation, portable radios, foam, and personnel tags. This department does have funding requests outside of the budget. What we try to do is separate one-time expenses or requested information from the fire departments on what they would request from ARPA or any other funding mechanism. The West Weathersfield Fire Department could use 12 bailout systems at a cost of $8,200. They went over a little bit on their roofing project by $7,200 and $10,000 for training stipends. The department recently received a grant for $48,000 to purchase a new set of spreaders, cutters, batteries, and a stabilization kit. The department is requesting the match. So the grant was $48,000, our share is $2,400. So they're looking for the match from that. And then lastly, the department would like to do a swift water rescue training. And that would include equipment to outfit 6 members at $10,000, and the training itself is $29.15. The FY25 Ascutney Fire Department budget. The Ascutney Fire Department is proposing a $19,000 increase in their budget, or 21% overall. Their supply budget includes $400 for batteries, $1,300 for an AED, $450 for traffic ones, $640 for battery lights, and $850 for repeat year batteries. Their PPE line increased by 66%, and that includes 3 helmets at $1,500, 3 pairs of boots at $1,800, 3 sets of bunker gear at $10,000, 8 traffic vests, 6 pairs of gloves, 6 hoods, for a grand total of $15,770. The department is also requesting an increase in vehicle maintenance as the cost of vehicle maintenance continues to increase for fire trucks. Similar to West Weathersfield, the Ascutney Fire Department also has additional funding requests, including $10,000 for body work, $13,000 to replace their skid tank, $9,500 for 2 thermal imaging cameras, $2,250 for traffic cones, and $15,000 for a heating system. In regard to the heating system, Ascutney stated that with the weight of the trucks, the floor could split. On nights below 0, the temperature drops 20 degrees or more when the garage opens and closes. So this department is looking to obtain a Modine heater. FY25 library budget, which is the last budget for the general fund, and then we can go into discussion about this. The Library Board of Trustees approved the library budget, and then they enter it into the general fund. So it is within the packet, but it is voted on by a separate board that's elected by the town. So with that said, there is some fluctuation in the budget. Just briefly, the Library Board of Trustees increased library employee wages last year based on performance and merit in last year's budget, which was in addition to the COLA. The accounts for the this accounts for the percentage increases you're seeing between this year and FY25. So you're seeing larger increases, 3.2%, and that's because wages were adjusted in FY24, and it had to go off that number in order to show the the correct percentage. Otherwise, this department remains relatively status quo. Is that too much information? Not enough?
Does the board want to stop now and have discussion of the general fund, which I intend to do separately no matter how we do it? Or would you like the manager to continue through the highway and solid waste budgets, and then we'll start our discussions at the top with the general fund? I don't, however you choose to do it is fine with me. Any preference?
I'm okay if we could just continue and then discuss at the end.
Okay.
Okay. All right, highway budget. The highway budget has been updated to include the COLA and healthcare decision. The budget also includes the new child care contribution tax at 0.33%. Overall, the budget is increasing by $27,000 or 2%. We used $46,000 in fund balance last year to limit tax increases, and we propose the use of $20,000 this year. We also budgeted a new line item in this budget, which is called Highway Insurance Benefits 2025 Contingency. Since health insurance costs operate on a calendar year, we budget based on a fiscal year. We estimated a 10% increase in health insurance costs for 6 months of FY25, and we reflected that in the budget. By the way, we can't have any vote tonight on any of the budgets because I'm still waiting for workers' comp and general liability, property, and vehicle insurance to come in. I did put estimates in all of the budgets for this, so they shouldn't be too much of a margin of error, but I will be updating those budgets once I receive those numbers. The FY '25 solid waste budget was always the most fun. We did hold that meeting with the chairs of West Windsor and Reading. There was no objection to the budget, but we do need to address recycling expenses, and we'll continue to research and discuss potential solutions. Some some key facts there that I already explained in the last meeting. We're looking at, like I said, not changing the permit sticker, but increasing the punch ticket by 25 cents. That's everything. On page 39, that shows the top side summary of all the finance for the town. So the first chart are all the revenues in the general fund, and then the second are all the expenses. And then you can see the revenue and expense for highway, revenue and expense for solid waste. I did add a new line all the way at the bottom of that page, and it shows all funds revenues and all funds expenses. I'm all set, Mike, from this.
Okay. Discussion on the general fund budget. Who wants to go first? Any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, dude.
I wrote down, a bunch of questions as you kind of went along from the points. So the first one was, and I didn't have a chance to look at this. I don't know if this was prepared for tonight or whether it was in the packet. Your town manager thing is not in the packet, right? This is the first we've seen of it. So some of my question when you wrote down about the Vermont Department of Taxes with this Velco problem.
Yeah.
You found out more, and it wasn't sent in the packet, and that's okay.
Yeah, that is true. I looked into it this morning.
Yeah. So I do think we need to keep our eye on the ball on that somehow to gain as much information as we can. Specifically with regard to, I saw the thing here talking about power lines and everything, but that wasn't my point at all. It was the actual upgrades were to the facility and the plants themselves, which we need kind of like a formal opinion on that, whether or not that can be depreciated or not. I view that almost as a barn or a house. It's not something that comes like our business inventory tax or however I don't know the description of that, and I've said in the past and taken a lot of heat for that. I didn't call it by the right name. I'm sorry, but you understand what that is.
Yeah.
So there's great big things over there that are bolted down to the ground. That's a foundation. It's not like a chair or a computer or a tractor on wheels or something like that. So I would appreciate clarification about that, because I know what you talked about with the CLA, but if you put it in context like a house, if a house could be depreciated, and let's say I have a house that's $100,000 in town, and all of a sudden that I can say, no, it's not really worth 100 anymore, Weathersfield, it's really worth 85 or 90 because I depreciated it by 10% a year until I got down to like 50.
Or the 20% of the CLA.
Right. So
For all of us.
can we use the same methodology, because now we're describing a power plant which is not movable, associate that to the same as our houses and buildings. That's all. I think the answer is yes to this question. So the fund balances that you're talking about are as of 6/30/23?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we get in quite a push and pull here about fund balances, you and I do. And the general fund has a preliminary audited fund balance of that much money. So here we go again with the accrual system of bookkeeping.
Yep.
I hope you're going to follow me along with this. The solid waste is a fee-based thing that doesn't have anything to do with accrual or cash basis. It's run by a fee-based thing on its own, other than the permit stickers.
Yes.
Okay, good. So that's one of our main budgets. The highway is the same fund as the school. They are cash
Yes.
fund bases.
Yep.
So when whatever we pass for an article says the highway budget shall be $1 million, $1 million comes from taxes, they are fully funded, that $1 million, every single year.
Yes.
VSA 313 says that if you run a fund balance, that you have to use it the following year, they're pretty explicit, for the same purposes as it was budgeted. Look up the law, because I already did.
I think that got repealed.
No, I don't know about that.
I was shocked when I found out. It was like a year ago. I think they changed
So what
it.
did they do?
They
They allow you to
about a
carry
year
it
ago.
forward?
Yeah, you can even mix the highway and general fund together.
Oh, they've screwed that up royally.
Mhm.
But we want to keep it.
No, I would. I
We're
would-
operating under the same old rules.
Yeah, I would never mix and match. It's so complicated to do that. It's so,
I agree.
on any budget, really, any one of these offices really need to be staying in their lane.
Yep. So
So-
we do, but we still do it the way that we did it before, and we fully fund the school and the highway department, the general fund takes the hit.
So where I was going with all this was, when you and I talk about, or Steve does too, wait a minute, we already used the money from delinquent taxes. You have advised us in the past that our delinquent tax have shrunk dramatically.
Yes, they have.
Okay, now I'm beginning to see the light. Because the money didn't disappear magically. The money is right here. It's starting to be right here. Because we're collecting it now. We didn't use it all. We used some. But when you see a balance of 162 on 2023, that means that we operated the town from 2022 to 23, paid everybody that works here for the town, the police, all these departments. And this is an over. But the over resulted from prior collections. A significant portion.
Yeah, a significant portion did. This has been cumulative though.
Yep.
Over several years. So it didn't all come from last year.
But it's growing, because I haven't seen that number before.
Yeah, there's a change this year in our prepaid. There was some changes in our prepaid expenses and other restricted.
But this is all good news. I'm not going down the criticism. I'm not- but I want to point out that there's going to come a day when we're running very close right now, right? I mean, we didn't have a tax sale. We haven't had a tax sale for 2 years.
Yeah, we're having one in January. I believe we have 7 properties that are
Wow.
going to tax sale in January.
Okay, so I'm just trying to close the general fund discussion.
Yep.
I like what you're doing with the at least for the first read on how to use that fund balance. Let me see what other notes that I have. So on both fire departments, I see their regular budgets, and then I see pretty significant number of other requests.
Yes.
How will that be handled with funding if it's not going to be budgeted? Is it do you have a initial way of funding those?
So the first step was, well, the board had asked the fire departments to present expenses, proposed expenses, things that they need or things that they want or are looking for from the board for ARPA. So ARPA would be a funding mechanism for these. We also have reserve accounts. We can also leverage grants. There's a variety of funding mechanisms. We could enter some into the budget if that's what the board wanted to do. We could have special appropriations beyond what was proposed.
So the only piece of advice that I would have maybe would be to offer as well, so the $40,000 added, from the year-end surplus going to wheels for fire, is that with the wheel fund?
That would be good.
Okay, so we've done this before, we've talked about it before for the non-wheel fund.
Right.
And we need to find out what that balance is for the reserve account and then think about that.
So you do have all reserves in the packet. If you go to page, and the long-term debt schedules here as well. If you go to page 62,
Oh my God, that's another 30 pages away.
It's way up.
Yeah, sorry.
So can you just shoot off the number, right, or
Yep.
not?
So the fire
We don't have to go there.
protection water supply, that's dry hydrants, has 13,087. Firefighting equipment and gear has 28,822. And then the wheels fund for fire has 173,000.
Okay, so my next question is, I see, particularly with the Scutney, there's significant issues with the building. Didn't we not just go through building inspection?
We did, and I believe,
Those were talked about, those cracks were pointed out when we were there.
They were. Okay. That's kind of a surprise to me, for a heating system for the, what, 15 grand? Or what, no, I'm just looking.
It's a really big modine that they put in because like David's, or Darren says, when you pop those doors open and you've got radiant heat in the floor, radiant heat doesn't recover. It takes hours for radiant heat to recover and get the room back up. So you want the modines to come on and heat the air in the room. Otherwise, your floor system is gonna come on and run and run and run. Your floor gets really hot. And then when it finally does reach temperature and shut off, it just keeps drifting up and up and up. And if the door opens again, it starts all over again. So that's not an efficient way to run a floor system.
No, I just saw the
Yep.
the floors are cracking. I didn't
Yep.
hear that during the building inspection or something.
I think they're noted in the inspection reports that we did.
yeah,
Before you
I'll
go
look
any
back
further
at
than
them,
that, I
and
got
I'll
something I
note-
wanna ask about the fire department. I thought didn't we pay to have the roof done in West Weathersfield?
Yes.
Why
Yes.
is there a $7,200 fee for roofing in here?
So there was
It's an
additional
overrule.
things that we found along the way. Josh, are you still here?
Yes.
Can you go into more detail about the roofing project and the additional $7,200?
Yeah, so there was additional work. Once the project got going, the chimney there was some cracks in the chimney that they found, so they had to remove the top portion of the chimney, reline it, put new blocks in. From there, the quote when we originally did the estimate from the beginning didn't include any new fascia, metal fascia to be wrapped around the building. So we had to take and do that. And then on the two gable ends, when they took the old roofing system off, there was metal that a big piece of metal that just kind of came out and looped back around. Once those
Should all
were
be
removed, there was
included.
nothing behind that.
Should
So
take that right along
on
with
the
it.
two gable ends, there was additional soffits that had to be built and added on. So that was what consisted of the additional work.
That came out of the fire department's fund?
I just got the invoice, and that's, we're proposing it tonight to be included in ARPA.
I make a motion that we do, because I would assume that should all been included with roof repair.
Yes, as well. That's what my recommendation would be. is
Just
to
for
pay
that
the additional
7,200, not for any of the rest of it.
Well, and I want to stay out of it because my son-in-law was involved with the contract. The only thing that I had heard about it was, I think that might be an unfair label because I don't think it associated specifically to only roofing. I don't know that, I just.
No, but I think it should be in the same category.
I think that's an outstanding invoice, isn't it?
Yeah, and Ira and I did communicate about this, and he did ask if he could move forward, and I did give the authorization. Worst case scenario, Josh and I were talking about offsetting it in the fire department budget, but it would be pretty difficult to do that considering the size of that budget. So.
Is that, I have one last, but I can't get
Yeah.
involved because you just put a motion on
Go
the floor.
ahead, go ahead, Dave.
So just one, is that invoice?
Did we have a second on the motion?
No.
Not yet. Is
Okay,
that,
go ahead.
is that invoice included in the warrant tonight?
Yes.
So I think the three of you should act on that.
What is the motion that's on the floor?
to pay for the $7,200 for the final of the roof repair for the West Weathersfield Fire Department. For the chimney, whatever needed to be done around for the metal repair that needed to be replaced at the same time the roof was done.
And where do you propose those funds come from?
ARPA,
Okay.
that's where the original
Well, I
money
know,
came
it
from.
needs to be in the motion. That's
Yeah, I did.
all.
I
Okay,
I second that motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to cover the cost. I don't want to call it cost overages. The added repairs needed at the Weathersfield, West Weathersfield Fire Department, totaling $7,200 to come from the ARPA.
And excuse me, for some reason it didn't make the warrant, although it was approved. So it'll be on the next warrant.
We can still approve it, right?
Yep, of course.
Okay, so did you keep up with the motion I was making?
Nicole?
And for that $7,200 for the added repairs needed for the West Weathersfield Fire Department to come from our.
Okay, sounds good, that sounds good. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I do have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
So the invoice was handed in, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I did initial it and did put it in there, with the intentions of, making sure if it didn't get approved by ARPA money, that we would have to make do and figure out it coming out of our budget. So with that being said, right now the invoice is 5 weeks. So that means he's gonna have to wait another 2 more weeks to get a check?
Josh, we're dealing with that.
Okay,
And I'll call Ira tomorrow and just let him know what we're doing. I think everything will be fine.
okay,
When I had said it didn't make the warrant, I wasn't saying that it didn't make the warrant because of you.
And we understand that. It's first I heard of it, but I understand what's going on.
Yeah, it was supposed to be on the warrant tonight.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. Any further discussion on the article, on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions?
Yes, me.
The motion carries 3-1. Let me see, how's that? 3-0-1. Thank you.
Okay, now you can continue.
Okay, I got one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so are there any, so we just saw an implication of the legislature with the payroll tax. Are there any other implications that you know of by the veto overrides that are gonna be affected on July 1st of 24?
Harrison's on.
Looks like we have John Harrison here. John, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hi, John.
The only veto that's still sitting on the table is the bottle bill. All the others, the vetoes were overridden, and I think the answer to your question is that there's nothing else that would directly affect the town budget.
Can I ask you a question? Hey, John, when the legislature passed the override for either natural gas and oil and everything, what did that do? In short, what were the words to the override? Was that a tax that's coming in 25, or so it's not going to affect the 24-25 budget, you don't think?
It will not affect the 24-25 budget. Well, let me rephrase that. In 25, the Public Service Board, PUC, is charged with coming up with more accurate numbers on what it's going to cost a consumer, or what it's going to do to fuel prices. And it also, the legislature still has to pass another bill to go forward. I'm going to say this with a little bit of trepidation that I don't believe, let's see, this will take us through July 1st, 25. I don't, even if the legislature put it on a fast track when the next session begins and passed it, I don't see how it could take effect before July 1st of 25. So I just don't see how it could possibly affect this year's budget, the budget you're working on.
And that's some of the problem that we go through, because of healthcare is a calendar year, and us here, you know that from years of you being here, was from July 1st to June 30th. It's just a little weird that we don't run on a calendar year, you know that, but healthcare does, which is always hard. And I don't know their intent with that. Will it run on January 1st or not? I don't know. I think that's all the questions that I have, Mike. I don't know if anybody else has any.
Any questions from anybody else? We're on the general fund budget.
Probably more of a point of information. We did have a good meeting, talking about solid waste, the budget.
This is general fund.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll hold my point of information.
Did we determine, do we have any employees in the general fund that do the buyout for the health insurance? Did we determine that? We're keeping that the same as it's always been? Have we decided that?
So I would recommend grandfathering any employees that are currently using it. And then we have to change the personnel policy in order to change it going forward. We are currently working on policies, but for the past couple of weeks, we've been focused primarily on budgets.
So we got 2 that are in the general fund then,
Yep.
that are doing the buyout.
Yes.
Okay.
And then one in the highway fund. So we have
And 1 in the highway.
3 total.
I'll say briefly that I've never been a fan of that thing, but the more I seem to get involved with the policies and the numbers, and this is something that saves us money in the long run when it happens.
It does.
That's about all I've got to say about it at this point.
Just for example, real quick, family plan's around $30,000. If somebody opts out of the healthcare and receives $10,000 for the opt-out, we're saving $20,000.
Correct.
Times 3, that's $60,000.
So you just triggered another question. I see in the highway budget that you have a line item, even if it's small, that's kind of good with the insurance claim. Did you do the same thing in the general fund, or are you just gonna kind of like leave the remaining fund balance to go?
Yes.
Okay, that's where you're thinking about if there's an adjustment needed.
Yes.
Okay.
That's this year anyways.
Okay.
And next year we could probably budget a line. I'm just not as confident due to potential changes.
I'm putting some information together here real quick. On the fire departments, on the extra added things
Yep.
outside of the budget, I have 49,000 for the Scutney, and I'm a little unclear on the west side because of how that starts out. It says they have, which include 12 bailout systems. What's a bailout? Is a bailout system something that they use as like it's some sort of equipment that they have?
Yeah, I think Ray could probably explain
If
that.
you're in a burning building on the second floor
Uh-huh.
and things go south, you gotta get out quick.
Okay.
You jump out a window, hook this thing up, jump out a window to bail out.
Okay, I just, my only reason for
Bailout means jumping out of a building.
yeah, okay. Being in budgets, I look at bailout as being something needs to be paid for that. So this is my reason for asking for what that was.
I assume it's
So,
a safety device, not a fundraising.
I'm in a boat with a hole in it.
That's actually really funny.
Drink that wine awful fast.
okay, so on the Scutney side, I have a total of $49,750, and on the West Weathersfield side, I have $20,708. On the Scutney side, my first question there, and we don't need the answers to this right this minute, Brendan. You can do this research and come back. The bodywork, what truck? What vehicle are we talking about? Where is that in our fleet and where is that in our capital plan? Skid tank, is this a replacement or is this something new? What is it? Imaging cameras, I thought we had two already. I think there's several over at the west side. So just questioning the numbers there again. Traffic cones, get like a boatload of them things.
During Irene.
And that was like way more than we ever needed then. The heating system, I have no questions on. I understand that. And then on the West Weathersfield side would again be the training stipends. That's something that would need to be discussed.
But all of those are so if we onto the budget, somebody's asking for ARPA or something for that, another source of funding.
Right.
Yes, another source of funding outside of the budget process.
So there's two things to think about from all of what you just said, Mike, and that is an annual reoccurring cost versus a capital purchase.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's really important to designate,
Yes.
on whatever the list that you just.
Yep. Brandon, I can give you this if you want it.
I got all the notes
Okay.
jotted down from what you guys said.
Okay. Good job.
Thank you.
So that moves us on to, is there anything else on the general fund budget? Any other questions at this time? That moves us on to highway. Any questions on highway?
Well, I have one more on the general fund.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to see a proposal that may increase the finance budget. I want to see a choice, just for me. I'm talking about dollar allocation, money. I see one in the treasurer's office, but I don't know that that's wholly the answer for me. And I would just like to see option.
I agree.
And I think I can make those options. I will present options. I think they could all be within the current amount of funding that's being proposed.
Okay.
Within
And-
those parameters.
And now we're back to highway. Nothing on highway?
I
just wish they'd, stop the storms.
Wish I had that power, I would be here.
Solid waste.
You had something you was gonna say?
Yep.
Oh, just a point of information, very good detailed meeting on the solid waste budget, and I think the punch card increase was kept to a bare minimum to cover increased costs, and as Brandon pointed out, it appears that the recycling costs have increased over the years, and his purpose in the punch card increase of 25 cents was to keep it at a bare minimum under the current way the transfer station operates. Having said that, we are interested in doing a site visit to look at how the transfer station operates and to see the volume of use of recycling versus other areas there. And so I think that'll come in the near future, a site visit.
I have some questions. Brandon, did we already do a evaluation of, like punch ticket token or whatever that is, with other area recycling transfer centers, transfer stations?
We can do an evaluation of that, but I will say that it's different. In Springfield, for example, they just budget the deficit in the general fund. So they budget an amount of money.
They also run a scale.
In the general fund, and they have a scale.
They
So
have
it's-
six employees.
we
Totally different.
we look at operating the transfer station at zero. So as close as we can get to zero every year is where we want to be. We're not too far off. I mean,
We're
the
not.
deficit that has been accumulating has been, 8,000 to 10,000 per year, and we just haven't been. We've tried to address it with a punch ticket increase, and then the cost goes up, and then
And that's where I want to go.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to get to. Because this sounds like a a repeat, if you will. It's like the record skipping. And we're saying the same thing, and we think just this little thing is gonna solve our problem, and I don't think it is. I'm almost leaning towards a $5 punch to get ahead of that, because we're kind of, it seems like we're just a little bit behind it. I think that's just what you just got done saying, that we make these little increases and it starts to solve the problem, but then the prices go up more and we're right back where we were. So we're just kind of chasing the tail of the dragon here, and maybe we ought to take the leap. I'm just questioning that.
So Mike, my recommendation would be, it's really, I mean, variable expenses and revenues, I think we do a pretty good job within what we can do to control them. But the budget either ends in the red or ends in the green. I think one year it was like $2,000 in the green. That's the most I've seen since I've been here. But when you look back over the past 10 to 15 years, you see it going like this, from red to green, red to green, red to green. It goes back and forth. But now we have to pay for our recycling. So that's the big difference now than before. We need to address our cumulative deficit and clear that somehow, either through a special article. It's not going to go away on its own. So we need to address that. And then each year, I'm hesitant about using a fixed revenue to pay for a variable expense, because you'll never be able to track it. You can fix the revenue.
Yeah.
The variable expense is always going to fluctuate.
Yep.
So let's say the budget ends this year negative $10,000. And our cumulative fund deficit, imagine that's not there. And that $10,000 was just for this year. We take that $10,000, we enter it into next year's fixed, as an expense in next year's budget, as a fixed expense, and then add that additional $10,000 into our fixed allocation formula, where all three towns can split the deficit. It will be fixed because we'll know what it is, because it was the end of the year, so that's a fixed amount that we can enter into that allocation.
And I think there's an important point from what you just said, which is we're working with 2 other towns now, and we have a cumulative deficit that was ours.
Yes.
Not theirs?
Correct.
It could be theirs, but it would be very difficult to gauge the amount. I've tried to do it, and West Windsor started using it, and they started using it more, and they used it less. Now we have this fixed formula and contract in place, and percentages for allocations. So I think the prior year deficit, we should address that somehow.
One more question for me on the deficit. What has this deficit done over the last 3, 4, 5 years?
Accumulated.
It's still, in other words, it still keeps going up. It hasn't this and this.
It's slowed down.
It has slowed down because
Okay.
we've been chasing it.
Considerably.
When I started, it was 38,000. So
Like
we're
what?
past almost 5. We're going on my 5th year. It's accumulated 20,000.
I've been working with, like Steve, coming up with different codes on the line, budget items, so we can track each individual thing instead of it being all bulked together. So now we know where the expenses are. So now we can start tweaking things to fix where the expenses are. It takes time. I mean, before we just knew that we were losing money. Now we know exactly where we're losing money, because we're tracking each item individually.
And in the transfer station joint committee meeting, like we talked about, we went around in circles, like how we should address this, how we should address the increased recycling cost. Should we change this? Should we change that? I think what we're doing right now, the Weathersfield residents are used to it, West Windsor's used to it, Reading's used to it. We just let the budget land potentially in $10,000 deficit. We just take that deficit, add it to the next year's budget, so it'll always be addressed in 1 year.
How do you,
Accumulate.
and how do you propose we resolve the 57,000 that's sitting there?
Special article.
One thought I had was using some of the reserve, as long as you can guarantee that you're gonna build the reserve back up over, let's say, 5 years. So if you can take 20 grand out of the reserve that we have and pay off what is our fund? deficit right now?
57,000.
Pay 57,000 off, and then have a plan to rebuild that 57 over so many years.
So we
Why
can't-
raising the rate?
I thought some of that money in there was for the compactor.
25 of it is.
25,000 is to, the compactor we borrowed from ourselves.
Oh, okay.
Paying ourselves back. We can't use that reserve account for the deficit. It was developed for a specific reason at town meeting. Steve told me the only way that we could use the reserve to pay the deficit is if we have a special article and ask permission from the voters.
But it is enough.
Yeah, we have two ways that we can do it. Well, we have other ways, but the two ways that the treasurer and I talked about is to, one, ask the residents for a special appropriation to pay for the deficit, and then we address it going forward, potentially through a fixed allocation formula. Or the second way is to ask the voters if we can use the reserve to pay the deficit. I think we need to address it, and the reason being is, once we address it, we can now isolate the deficit going forward, and we'll be able to put it into the next year's budget and stay in control of it.
And be more reactive, quicker, with either rates or charging more punches or whatever, before it gets out of hand again.
There's a problem, there's a political problem, because we're a three-town entity, and someone will always say, somebody like me saying, wait a minute, why is Weathersfield shouldering the burden on the entire deficit when it wasn't borne by us entirely? So I don't think that's a good fit, just to have Weathersfield have a special article absorbing the whole deficit.
But if you do use the reserve, Dave, and then all three towns are helping to pay that reserve back, technically they're all helping to pay off the deal.
That's a good point.
But the reserve doesn't have enough in it, does it, to pay the whole thing?
It does. We have a net position. We have a net position of 27,000 right
So
now.
would be $2,000 to the good, after the 25 is saved in here.
And then what we do is we put $10,000 in the fixed allocation formula annually to pay the reserve back.
Correct.
Through the three tri-county agreement.
Correct.
I don't know, I'm not following what you're doing, so we're not gonna make a decision on that tonight. Here's what I suggest, and this is where I would be on the solid waste. I don't wanna charge for recycling. I know it costs money, but it would defeat the purpose to recycle. There's a philosophical difference here. We should be doing all we can to enhance more recycling and not have stuff go in a landfill. There's a danger in raising the fees. I'm already seeing it. In fact, I heard on the scanner where somebody threw a bag out and they got the license plate and everything, and the state police were all over it. There'll come a point where we'll start seeing more trash on the roads, and I think we've seen that. We're starting to. I think August and you, Brandon, Ray, or whoever, should take time and go visit other stations. Maybe they're doing things way better than us, or maybe we're already doing all we can in different departments. I don't know where they are, but we have, 28 towns? You're on the committee, right?
Yes, August and I are both on.
No, I meant to the 28 town, the Wyndham,
Yes.
Windsor County. I mean, it might be, like, I always just go over to, or if I drive to Bascom's, you go right past the Charlestown, New Hampshire one. They seem to be open all the time, and they'll take stuff. And with nobody there. So maybe we should be thinking about having more of a facility where we don't have employees, or we have a little bit better way of doing the business of transfer. The last thing that I would suggest is, according to what the information that you gave us, it's significant cost for C&D. I say we double the cost on disposal and make more money to offset that's a different product than recycling and going into the compactor.
Just double the tokens.
Just double a token. And you know what, make
I
a
thought of that
different
too.
color. Take the heat off of the employees, so they don't have to say it's 27 punches or 52. We've already heard that story. You need a red punch to dispose of C&D. I mean, a red ticket. You need to be able, you buy that in order to use that.
So in Springfield, I use the Springfield transfer station now, and Natalia and I were doing a lot of remodeling on the house. We have a lot of C&D. And what happens is I pull up to the C&D dumpster, and then there's a scale there. He doesn't use it too much. He kind of looks at it, and he's like, all right, what do you figure that's 100, 150 pounds or 200 pounds or whatever. And then he's like, all right, and I give him cash. It's usually 15, 20 bucks,
Uh-oh.
30 bucks.
The guy's gonna put it in his pocket. Uh-oh, we don't wanna be in that business.
And I don't want
Isn't
the
that
cash
mafia?
business.
So small unmarked bills. But I would say this, I concur with Dave. And as a representative to solid waste, I'm absolutely up for site visits. I think we start with ours. And I think what we do is we refine it to a very digestible, straightforward back brief report for the select board and for you. And then it's something we can share with the town and say, this is how other towns are doing it. These are efficiencies that they have.
Right.
These are things we're doing well. These are things they're doing well. And I think Dave had a good point, is we don't want to discourage recycling, but we need to be efficient and then find a longer term.
Remember when we had the discussion about, you might not have been here, August, I know you guys were. When we first talked about charging for recycling, that's what we said, that you gotta have the incentive to do it. But when I think about what you're talking about in the visits to others and what they're doing efficiently, they do it by weight. Everything is in your truck all at once, and you pay a flat fee per pound for everything you have. And then you drive in, so you drive up, you get weighed, then you drive in, you put your recycling where it goes, you throw your garbage away, your C&D goes into C&D, you come back around and you get weighed, and it's X number of dollars per pound. So you're actually paying for everything, and it's an accurate system. And that may be, I know we cringe at having, I don't know that it balances out, because you have more employees. Again, you're going to have an employee running the thing. You're going to have somebody in a scale room. Where are you going to be selling the tickets? Now, are you going to have a booth there to sell the tickets?
So I think we can do some work, and I think ultimately everyone agrees you want to keep the costs to the residents as low as possible.
Yeah.
And make the transfer station operate efficiently, so we don't have to chase a trash violator.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. Next, Dave's not wrong. There's a breaking point where stuff starts ending up over the bank, right?
Just so everybody understands too, collecting the data is half the battle. We've already addressed most of that.
Yep.
As far as where we're losing money or gaining money.
Yeah.
The other issue is the state of Vermont is really pushing to get things out of landfills. So the more stuff they're taking out of that dumpster that we're getting money for, the more stuff is going away for free. So we're losing revenue. So we're going to keep chasing our tail, jacking prices up to get more for trash, because we're getting less trash in the container.
That's correct.
To make up for the stuff we're losing elsewhere. So this whole comprehensive plan, we've talked about it in these meetings. That's why this group is so beneficial, what August and Brandon are on, to come up with comprehensive, 5-year plans, to know how to revamp the transfer station. Do you send out a bid and say, hey, it's a private contractor, you're gonna come in and run it cheaper? What are our options? Look at other facilities. That whole thing is all on the table with this group.
Oh, good. That's good. That's good news. Thank you for that, Rick. Dave?
I'm all in. I don't know what the board feels about it. I'm all in letting Brandon and August or whoever decide if they overnight double the cost of C&D and have a new ticket. I'm all in. I mean, I don't think the board should wait. That would, in and of itself, start to address the deficit.
We wouldn't necessarily have to have new tickets if we just said
However they
double
wanna
the
come up with
C&D, because if you double because they already have a system that they're using for looking at what they're taking, and they're charging 2 punches, now it's 4 punches for the same thing.
And that's what we're seeing is most towns that they were discussing at the meeting were using punch systems or pay systems.
Yeah.
And there were scales based on volume.
Yeah.
The C&D is the #1 thing that ends up on the roadside, just so you know. And those are the big heavy things we have to carry up over the bank to get back into the road. So that's, to me, that's, every time you jack up C&D, those are the things you start seeing: couches, mattresses, sheetrock, wood, all that crap on the sides of the road. A lot of times when you jack up trash, you don't see trash bags on, garbage. This morning.
I think we should, before we change anything, I think we should.
Let the study go.
We have a meeting in Reading with the other 2 towns to dig into this a little bit more. We have some studying to do in between that time. I think we're okay this year, changing the punch ticket 25 cents in July, and I think we need to address the deficit. So we have a clear slate, so that we can start budgeting the deficit and splitting it between the 3 towns each year. How do we want to address it? Do we want to talk to the other 2 towns?
Well, I was just gonna suggest something that you got here, and you're kind of the guy that pulled us out of the weeds and said, hey guys, look at this. So you kind of have a handle on when and where this thing came from, and those towns, like Dave said, we weren't the only town using it. They were still using it then. So maybe there's a way you can break it down into percentages, that this percent would be theirs for each of those towns, and this percent would be ours. We'll take care of ours, they take care of theirs. Does that get a little closer, Dave?
Yeah, anything, I don't,
Let me come up with let me research that again,
yeah.
because I tracked it back 15 years, I think.
Yeah, I remember exactly what it was, but I knew you went back a ways. Because it was a shock to us when we got the news.
Well, it's just really difficult to determine
Yeah.
back then the use of the transfer station, because there was no agreement. We
Well,
can't really.
and I think we all understand that, and I think it's a matter of sitting down with our partner towns and just saying, yeah, probably the majority of it is ours, but it's not all ours. So what seems fair, and just have that discussion, and see where they come in. Okay. So that ends solid waste. Any other discussion on solid waste okay, so the solid waste is done. Police cruiser invitation for bids. Brandon?
Yeah, so this is the invitation for bids that we assembled. It's pretty short and sweet and simple. To advertise for bid tomorrow, if the board approves this invitation for bid. This invitation for bid is not budgeted, so it's not something we have in the budget. So I would be looking for approval from the board prior to releasing it.
Go ahead.
I have a question about this. So I've thought a lot about this since the last meeting, and I, don't want to talk when Bill's not here because I need some more information. But here's the questions that I had. In the presentation that we were given, we now have 3 cars. We've never had 3 before. It's the first time that we've had 3, that we kept the one for a spare, to be used by the part-time officers. The last time we had articles, so the new car that we bought, of course, we paid cash for. I think it was wholly through ARPA funds. And maybe even we figured out a way from a surplus to purchase the car that Bill has now, at least half. So we haven't had to go to the voters for funds in the police car business. So listening to the proposal a couple of weeks ago, we now have a brand new car with 0 miles on it. It just came in service. We have, I think Bill's car, and I think he said, and I didn't write it down, but I think it has like 30 or 34,000 miles on it now.
Yep.
And he's talking about buying another brand new one right now that has 0 miles on it. He also said that he puts on about, each cruiser puts on about 15,000 miles a year. So after the meeting, I thought long and hard about this. So while this may seem good, well, first of all, there's a few things for me to sort out. Number one, we would have 2 brand new cruisers almost at the same time. Just bought one, gonna buy another new one. And we have one with 30 or 35,000. Now, by the time this one would take delivery, I get it, it'll be 6 months, or he was actually trying to do the homework, whether or not it would get outfitted or whatever. And the miles would then run on the cars that we now have. So, but still, they're not gonna be appreciably higher. They might be 5,000 or 10,000 miles higher. It's not enough, really. So down the road, we would be faced on buying two at the same time. That's not a good picture, for me. Second, we would then have two almost brand-new cars, one with 35,000 miles on it. We don't have a garage. The two full-time police officers that we now have cars. So we'd have a brand-new car sitting in a lot somewhere, being unused and unprotected, because our part-timers only work about,
25 hours a week.
is it 25?
Yeah.
I thought it was less than that.
25 each or 25
No.
total?
25 total, between both part-time officers.
And they don't usually, don't they usually use one of the other two cars?
No.
Depends. Yeah, sometimes we overlap them, or Bill overlaps them.
So here's my thought on this, and that, you know, again, I don't know that we're all in a hurry on this. I'm just throwing this out there. I know that, and this is news to me tonight. I know that and I'm not going to scroll back 150 pages to find it, because you put in for the general fund surplus to an allocation for police. I thought for like 20,000. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much is in the reserve account now. That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is not only to do the right thing now, but to do the right thing for the future. And having two brand new cruisers at the same time would be no different than two other machines in other sections of town for me. I don't know that that's a good picture. And we don't have a garage. There's 168 hours in a week. To use that or have something like it only to be used 20 or 25 hours a week doesn't seem like a good fit to me right now. And I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about purely cars. So, he also brought forward the picture of the cruiser that we now have, that is Ryan's one that got, he's got a brand new one, but we kept the other one with 120,000 miles on it, right? He told us about that it needed new ball joints, new U-joints or something. And it was $3,400 or some such amount.
Yep.
Did that go to the garage?
Yes.
Here's my thought. I'm not in favor of putting this out to bid tomorrow for those reasons that I just stated. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't be forever looking at it. But I think we should advance more money if need be and pay for that cruiser to be the 120,000 miles until we see a capital equipment schedule a little bit more in line with the, like, every other year or every third year or something, and not have two brand new cruisers in 1 year, which we just did. That's what's happening. So I would not be opposed to spending, be aggressive, get the work, whatever they call those, the history of the repair on the cruiser that we now have for 120,000 miles, given the fact that that one specifically would be targeted to either a backup if Bill or Ryan's car was broke down, but more in line with the part-time people, so they have a car that's available. And then get the history of the work on that car, whether or not it needs new tires, new brakes, new exhaust, ball joints, U-joints, I don't care. Upgrade it and let it go for 1 more year. That would be my suggestion.
I think Dave's comments make a lot of sense, especially when you consider you don't want to have all your cruisers swapped out every year or every other year, I mean, the same year in sequence. You want to spread out the rotation of you want to budget it so you don't have a big hit.
Now, Brandon, you did do something which I didn't know until tonight, which was to allocate the money, the $20,000, without asking for taxes or a reserve account due to the surplus. But I want to caution everybody that that surplus in the general fund was derived from everybody paying their taxes and collecting them. So it didn't just drop out of the air. We already paid for it. It's just a good use of those funds. It can be, without asking the people in town for new funds. So,
All right.
I'm not opposed to, I just want a little bit better here to fit about the.
So I got a few. So we got one car that we just got, has 0 miles on it roughly. It's brand new, right? I don't know how many it's got, but it hasn't been here very long, right? And one that's got 34,000. I believe Bill's presentation was 8 months out at the earliest, before we'd see it.
He said 8 to 9 months.
Before we'd see a car, if we did do this now. So my first question is, what is, now, one car would be considered a part-time car or a fill-in if there was something wrong with one of the current full-time cars. The two full-time cars, what are the annual mileage numbers on the full-time cruisers?
15 to 20.
15 to 20,000 per year.
Yep.
Okay. So we have two cars right now that are 34,000 miles apart. So they won't be replaced in the same year.
No.
And if it's 8 to 9 months, that's 75%, 80% of your 15 to 20 to an average of 17. 80% of that's what, 14, roughly? 14, 15,000?
Well, if you took
So-
the 20, so, but if it is in fact 15, then you're only talking about 12. So you're gonna have one with a new one, this new one proposed would be 0, then one with 12, then one with 45.
There you go.
That's what you would do.
Yes, that's what I was getting, that's what my questions were, that's what I was trying to get at.
One of the problems with that was that down the road.
Well,
we
but
might
wait
not
a
see it.
minute, because the 80% was based on 8 to 9 months. It would even be half of that because it's only part-time. So they'd be even closer together, which comes back to the point you're trying to make.
Well, which
The,
would
the,
be,
the new car would end up even closer.
right, those two cars.
But the
would
other
be-
two, the other two would move away from it.
Right.
Because it's at part-time. So the spread of 0 to 34, would just kind of move along, because those are full-time, but the part-time car would lag behind that. And now, does that equate to more years? I don't know.
Well, I think we could take, I think what Bill's proposal was is to take the car that has 35,000 and transfer it to a part-time worker, so it would be used less. And then he would take the newer cruiser with 0 miles.
Well, then that even more supports what Dave's point is, because now they're gonna catch up. And now they're definitely they're gonna land on the same year.
They
If you
all,
do
both
that.
cruisers get the same mileage every year, no matter whether it's Bill or the two other guys. It's 15 to 20,000 each cruiser.
That's
Doesn't matter which one
that's
goes
two
first.
cruisers.
Yeah.
Okay, but now we're talking about a third one
Yeah.
being part of the picture.
That's gonna have the same amount of miles? Probably, because it probably.
Well, no,
yeah.
because the part-timers are working less, and they're not driving as much as Bill or Ryan.
Whatever car gets moved over to the part-timers is gonna generate about 50% of that. Is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yes,
Does
yes.
that make sense, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm following.
So if the
I know he talked about a rotation, and he was gonna rotate them better and keep the mileage where it should be, so he can rotate his cars every 3 years, because a cruiser lasts about 3 years.
I do recall a conversation that you and I had at some point in time where we bought the second cruiser and we had that cruiser for sale at that point in time. And it was like, do we want to get rid of it or do we not want to get rid of it? And it was like, if we don't get rid of it, it's going to end up getting replaced and we're going to have 3 cars someday. Remember that?
This is the first time, though, that we've kept 3, because the part-times have used either one of the other 2 cars when they've been on. Now they're not. Or if they only are, it's because maybe the one that we had was not around, or whatever the reason.
Well, here's where I'm at with where we're at tonight, though. This is just a request for a proposal or bids, right? We do not have to take action on the purchase of a vehicle. So does it make sense? I mean, what if we get a really good deal? You just don't know if you don't have the information.
No, the only thing that I would say to respond to that would be that I haven't seen the total capital equipment purchase funds for the town. So Ray could say the same thing. I got a really good deal on a
how soon
dump
do you-
truck. Why not me?
I'm just gonna do the extra above my budget and go in your
So I think
Or a fire department could say the same thing.
I would like to get the
They are.
I would like to get the invitation for bid out in the case, and then I would like to have opportunity to present a capital plan for the police department, for police cruisers only on 12/4. Because I think we can structure it in a way, purchasing another cruiser so that they're not replaced in the same year. And the reason I say that is because if we take that, I'm gonna go down year 1 all the way down to year 20, and I'll calculate everything out with mileage. But if we take that cruiser with 35,000 miles on it, and the part-timer is using that, maybe it'll only get 10,000 miles per year, so next year it'll have 45,000. We have one that will probably have 15,000 by the time the next cruiser comes in, which will have 0 when it starts. So I think we can figure it out in a way that two are not being replaced in the same year.
And I will say there's a public safety aspect. Probably the most important things that our town provides are law enforcement services, fire services, road services. And so I think that if we can do a request for bid and gather more information to make the decision, and there's a capital plan that spaces out the purchases, I think that's low risk for us. We at least.
Yeah, I don't see getting the proposal or the bids as being any kind of commitment. We don't have to. We're not making a decision to buy.
So when we used to only have 2 cruisers, did we only ever have 2 cops? We never had part-timers
When I
before?
started down here, we had 1 cruiser and 1 cop.
For a very long time.
Period. Yeah.
And the state police were much more active.
Yes, that's true too.
So the covering and so forth, and I don't know when enough's enough. I know I've had people come to me and say that, okay, given the state's attorney positions on it, what good does it do that we're catching people, and if they're not gonna, the police are trying to do their job, but then the ball gets dropped after they get done.
But you know how we say if we up C&D, we're going to end up with more crap over the bank? There goes my language. You almost have the same thing with what you just pointed out. With your state's attorneys and district attorneys not doing their job, not taking these crimes, some of the smaller stuff to court and doing something about it, people start to think they can get away with more, and now you start to have more crime. Well, what does that mean? Now you need more people out there watching what's going on.
With regard to the bid, the only thing that I would add to it, I don't think it needs to be done right now, and I would just add this. We're in a position of financial strength for the first time. That's going to stop. When these funds, ARPA, not gonna come around anymore, fund surplus, the town manager has pointed out to us that the delinquent taxes are down to a record low. And I don't say that to be dramatic. If the number that he quotes us at, so that is not in our pocket to do this spending. Down the road, that's the danger in having this equipment get what I call new paint disease. And I appreciate, August, your comment about public safety. I've been 100% behind Bill, whatever he wants to do. I'm just talking about spacing out a better plan and evaluating how long a machine sits non-used.
But if we've got one that's got 122,000 on it, and we can push that one for another year, then we could do that later on with a vehicle that's at 70 or 80,000 miles. We could do the same thing. We could push that for another year too, if we had to, so that they're not stacked on top of each other.
Per his discussion he had here last time, he's trying to keep the vehicles under warranty, which is gonna save you even more money. So if you're buying you have 3 cruisers, they're lasting 3 years, you're buying a cruiser every year.
I'm not on with that theory, and the only reason why I'm not on with the theory under any warranty circumstance, because any experience that I've had with it, the first thing that the company says, and I've dealt with a few, I'm sorry, that's not covered. And the cost of the repair is cheaper than the payment you had to make to buy the new vehicle that's allegedly warranted. That's what's happened to today's reality. We've seen it with these cruisers.
I think Bill's argument was that, there's a certain set of miles, when you hit that certain set of miles, that the value of the vehicle just starts to drop. And that's your trade-in value, your resale value, any of that stuff, it just starts to nosedive.
Well, but he just got that with the last one that just went out with 120,000 on it. He got $2,000.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
And I don't know that I would have handled it that way. I think I would have put a for sale sign on it.
And the fire trucks that
Yep.
were recently sold,
Same way.
same thing,
Same way.
you know.
I'm not opposed to getting research on this. If you want to send the bid out, go out. But I'm not on board with the schedule that's been presented to be.
Well,
We develop a new schedule,
well,
and let's look at that.
hey, I tend to agree with Dave. We don't want to see things stacking up on top of each other. And I think August is on the same page too. Let's get the research done.
Yeah, it
We'll
should
have
be
the numbers. I
predictable.
think
If-
that's
you know,
fine.
If you know the number of officers and the number of cruisers and the number of miles, then you can have a fairly predictable.
Yeah, this is no commitment to purchase at this time. Of course, saying that, you might not have a lot of people
Yeah,
talking
somebody-
to you now.
Well, look, in halfway through the paragraph, a decision is expected to be made on January 2nd. And the bid's January 3rd to be
Yeah,
awarded.
well, that may change.
Well, a decision could be yes or no. So, it'll definitely be discussed when we get the bids back, and the decision.
What page are you on? Up
First
here,
page
up
of
here.
the bid. You can change that, before it goes out.
65.
30 pages.
Motion to approve the RFP for police cruiser.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? No further discussion on the motion. The motion is to send out an RFP. Is that correct?
Invitation for bids.
Invitation for bid on a new police cruiser. There is no further discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved. And next up is Village Wastewater Committee. Second reading continued. I gotta go find that.
I've spent about, I don't know, an hour and a half. I read through the whole entire packet. I think there were 12 attachments.
I have a question.
Go.
I'm gonna be pretty bold with this. So I saw the committee and these words, but something really stuck out with me, and I think we should change direction. I want this study to be productive. I truly do, and some people probably will say, no, you don't, but yes, I do. But I saw something that stuck out with me with Otter Creek's, the 30% of the work that they've done, and it's very eye-opening to me. In both the Ascutney Village and the Perkinsville Village, there were less than 200 houses or properties that they identified as potential sites for the wastewater issue. 83, I believe it was, in Perkinsville, and the balance here in Ascutney. Those numbers, to me, were so small that the project, or both projects, could never really get off the ground with their own full-fledged, this is my opinion, full-fledged systems. I think we should regroup. I think we should try to develop perhaps a plan where if persons have a smaller group of homes that the town could facilitate, that smaller systems might work. the numbers that were used in Otter Creek also then would probably extend to saying that every one of those homes would then go on the system, which we know not to be true. That just won't happen, the reality of it. I'm trying to make this study, or to get my arms around, to have this study based in reality. Not some other study in Weathersfield that gets put on a shelf and goes off the deep end. I'm just talking about a numbers-based, real approach to fixing a potential problem.
So on 12.4, and you know, I talked to Craig, our engineer who's doing this. He did say that we don't need a village wastewater committee, and he can present to the select board. He can do that on 12.4.
I'm going to follow piggyback, I think, right on track with you and right on track with you. The agreement does not require us to have a committee. It's a best practice from the state for wastewater committees. Having read the entire study, it's a draft feasibility study. The next state, you can allow the engineering firm to continue to work through you on behalf of the select board and provide updates. I think a committee is not even necessary to move forward with the engineering completing their study. However, and I'll keep this real short. One of the components of this is to find alternatives. And having read their draft Perkinsville one, which is the one of greatest concern, and having heard from prospective members of a committee that do not feel they have the time or the energy to commit to holding public hearings, et cetera, which a committee typically would do, the engineering company can complete their work for us. And one of those pieces of work is examine alternative solutions. So say, for instance, in the draft feasibility study, they identified, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9, something like that, homes. The problem, the crux of the problem was you have several homes with small lots sharing septic systems that's gone on for decades, and they're looking for solutions. So alternative solutions is something an engineering firm specializes in. There's a system called when I was researching this, I jumped on the computer. A Presby system can be installed under a driveway, under a lawn, can be driven over, is smaller, is not significantly any difference in cost than a traditional leach field.
Actually, they're cheaper,
Well, there you go.
considerably cheaper.
So I would put similar to what Anne Marie said last meeting. Let's have the engineering company do some work for these residents and look at alternatives. And some of those alternatives might be, hey, homeowners, here's a system that may solve your problem or provide options for you to consider. But I think you might find that this is in many ways a solution that can be reached, that can really help a small number of homes, versus one of the options that they weren't providing alternatives. They were providing a study with a focused option, up to 30,000 gallons of flow per day for one potential design for the whole village of Perkinsville. It's I think going down the wrong path. So I think it would be good to give feedback and to the engineering company to look at the alternatives for those select homes with the biggest problem. That's my input.
And I think that's a great way to look at this. And
You could table the policy, table the committee discussions, and just get the engineering company to do some research for you.
and have them come in and present their 30% report, and the board can give them feedback. People that are requesting appointment can come in and also participate in the second meeting in December.
Okay, I'm gonna reel a couple things in here. First of all, the topic on the agenda is the second reading of the Village Wastewater Committee policy. Now, I like where all of this is going, because I couldn't agree with you more that this needs to be a feasibility study about all possible scenarios and whatever those fixes or problems. We got to identify problems before we even come up with fixes.
Examine all alternative solutions proposals.
Yes, so that's good, and having these guys come in and present to us the 30% in December, that needs to happen.
Okay.
But in the meantime, and maybe we form a committee, maybe we don't, but I don't think we should give up on the language that's before us now. at this point in time. Because this is just for the policy. We're not gonna name anybody tonight, but we gotta get this done too.
And I would like to hear the response of those prospective members that wanted to be on the committee, what they
Yes.
thought about what I just said, what August just said, what
Sure.
you said, what anybody said.
Sure.
About development.
I was looking while you were talking, and John was gone, and I don't see Anne Marie. I don't know if she's still there.
Yeah, I am
She's still
here.
there.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
And talking to some of the members of the committee, at this point, going through all this policy and going through groups and all this stuff, ultimately, they don't really see that you need a committee. Reading through, I also read through the entire report, and it said that, it was up to the engineering firm to call. It says nothing about a committee, but the engineering firm in the next round would be holding hearings and meetings. So it's up to them, and they would be more responsible. I don't think the people who signed up for the committee are gonna go away, because they do have a vested interest in their property values. Their house is gone, their house is gone. And to many, this is their only source of wealth. This is their nest egg, this is their home. So they're not gonna go away. And I see that if we do nothing about this committee, the engineering firm is still going to continue on. One other thing that it says is just going to the point of that smaller systems. And maybe groups can get together and decide whether they want to do this. This is like to put a new septic tank in, rip up driveway on less than a half an acre of land, and with your well right nearby is foolhardy. Your well is 10 feet away, no matter where you're going to put this new septic system. But anyway, going back to the point of 40,000, even if you have 6 people needing it, to put that money toward a study and not have any figures in an unknown is kind of foolhardy, because they don't have the money to invest in this. That's where this study would be of importance. When they talked about also the 30,000 MGPGs or whatever, they were talking about expanding this from the designated village center to the entire area of Perkinsville. And, just maybe selectmen would want to look at expanding this. The other thing is, but if the study is expanded, you're going to lose federal funding, which could pay for, the study could be being paid for once it's completed. But to go after the federal money that has been, the infrastructure bills and stuff, that money's there once in a lifetime. And that money could be used for a solution or towards a solution. Also, the other part of the study is the engineering firm would be studying user fees. How many people would hook up to this? How much is necessary? We don't have that information. So I think the study going forward is fine. The engineering firm has its marching orders. It knows what to do. We're not the only town this engineering company has dealt with. They've been doing this across the state. We'll let the work continue on the study so we have something to hang our hat on. Because right now, we have nothing. That's what I think I have to say. And
One thought that I had before you started talking, Anne Marie, was that if public input was necessary, there isn't any reason why this board can't organize some sort of public meeting,
Sure.
input meeting.
Anybody can do that.
Of course it can.
Or the planning commission.
Planning commission, conservation commission. Actually, I think they should be involved in it. I was going to add that to this anyway, because they're the ones that watch a lot of the lands for conservation and protections. They're the ones with the biggest handle on that.
And in the study, they already go through wetlands, they go through natural resource areas, conservation,
Yes,
animal
Yep.
pathways. and
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah,
The
we,
engineering study has a handle on it. They have our zoning map, they have,
Yeah.
they have all this information. They are pulling it together for the town.
and I'm glad to hear that you said that you guys aren't going to go away, because that would be the last thing we need. We still need you to be,
Not to worry, not to worry.
we still need you involved.
Of course.
Okay. So what does the board want to do right now with this language? I did find some things that I wanted to change in here, but do we want to even bother with it at this point?
I think you could, because you already have a draft feasibility study, and if they come and brief you, I think you could literally table the policy and the committee until you have a chance for them to brief the study and give them guidance for next steps.
Table would not be the proper term for us to use. I know it's a hard one to learn. But when we table, if we motion to table, it becomes the first item on the next agenda.
Well, if
According
we're
to
not
the
going to hear
rules.
from the engineering firm till December.
We,
That's the next meeting.
we can,
Yeah, but we don't want it then.
We're in the middle of a policy warrant here, so we're at the second reading. We've already moved it from the last meeting to this meeting.
We could keep-
So you can
we
close the hearing, or move it to you can move this policy to the third and final reading, at which point I guess you could.
I wouldn't want to do that, because like I said, there are some changes I'd like to make. But we could continue it. It's date and
That's a
time
continu-
specific,
Yes,
which is further out.
yes,
And
Yes.
we could do that for.
yes.
So how far do you want, when is this, December 4th, I think you said they're
Yes, the
coming?
next meeting is 12/4.
Okay,
And the meeting after that is 12.
where do you see us with budgets and budget information and stuff in January?
I'm hoping to be done by the second meeting in December, unless there's anything significant the board would like me to
Okay,
research or change or.
then just to be safe, when are you gone on your vacation?
January 17th.
Okay, and that's following our second meeting already, correct?
Yep, we have two meetings. Natalia and I scheduled it in a way that allows me to attend the two select board meetings in January.
Yeah, so the first one is, well, it would be the second unless because the first Monday is the first,
It's a holiday, yeah.
is a holiday. So, and we're gonna need to take that up too.
Of January?
Yes, January 1st is on a Monday. So the second meeting would then be on the 15th. So that's where I would propose this to go to, would be the 15th of January.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion to get,
I make a motion that we, move the village wastewater committee policies and procedures to our meeting on January 15,
No,
2024,
second reading?
the second reading.
15th
Continue
is,
the second reading to January the 15th.
Martin Luther King Day is
That's
at,
another holiday.
That is another
the
holiday.
8th and
It'd
the
be the
22nd are open. The 8th and the 22nd are,
We'd move it to a Tuesday.
Okay,
It'd be the 2nd and the 16th.
16th,
we'll
yeah.
do the 16th. It'll be Tuesday.
May I say something?
Yes, Anne Marie, go ahead.
If we're not all that excited about having this, or seeing the purpose of a committee, why are we pushing this off? Because as I see it, it's just delaying the study. It took almost a year.
No, we're not delaying the study. We're not delaying the study. They're coming in on the 4th,
Okay.
okay?
So they can continue their work.
We're not stopping. This is only to do with the policy, hon.
Okay, my only concern is that the federal money will go away.
No, we're not,
Here today, gone tomorrow, that type of thing.
no, we're not gonna hold up the works. We just, this part, but that's our stuff. Their stuff needs to keep going. And we may or may not do a committee. And that's why I'm pushing this out enough. There's a few edits I wanted to make to this, if we even end up keeping it. We may not. They're minor things that I saw that just didn't quite make sense. and I'll fix that. And I could be wrong. Once in a lifetime, I'm entitled to that. It did. The motion was made.
I made it. Did anyone, no one seconded
No one
it
did,
yet.
no one did second it. I need a second on the motion to continue to January the 16th, which is a Tuesday.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Anybody having any edits or changes that they'd like, please get those ready for that meeting, so that if we do continue, we can get through that and move to a third and final on this at that time. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. We'll see this again on the 16th of January. And think about this, maybe we don't want to continue with it at all, and that's fine. Anyway, next up is, I think, town manager update.
Yeah, I just got a couple more things. The select board annual report, what we do, we'd like to have it in by the end of December, first or second week of January, so we can get that annual report out to the printers. I think usually the chair and I will meet and assemble a draft report for the board to review, and determine if changes need to be made or additions or subtractions and so forth. The second thing I have is Thanksgiving is Thursday. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. The town office will be closed on Thursday. Yeah, that's all I have tonight.
Appointments. Nothing on appointments. Approve the warrants.
Make the motion, we approve the warrants for November 20th, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Actually, we go through the
I guess I
warrants
gotta
first.
go through
You
the-
gotta
yeah.
go through it first, yep.
Okay, approve the general fund payroll, $17,316.74. Operating expenses for general fund, $18,042.33. Highway fund payroll, $9,003.25. Highway fund operating expense, $66,684.05. Solid waste payroll, $1,980.71. Solid waste operating expense, $28,155.17. Library, $22,408.35. Library operating expense, $28.50. Reserve account, I don't know what reserve account that would be, but it just says reserves. Is there an account that we, operating expense,
Yeah, I think that $128.35
$0.35.
is for Amazon Parks and Recreation Reserve.
I think in the future that
Parks
should
and
be,
Recreation.
yeah, okay, so that should be specified, so we know, somebody,
Yeah.
we have 50 reserve accounts. I mean,
I couldn't agree more.
special revenue, operating expense, $50,992.48. Same question. So if you could identify what those were, it'd be helpful. Whether they're general fund, highway fund, I don't know what.
It's vacation pay for January.
It's a Martin Memorial Hall generator operating expense, $404.01 to be taken out of ARPA funds. See, that one is nice because it's specific. And
You know what it is.
for a grand total payroll, $30,709.05, and a grand total operating expense of $164,434.89.
Now I hear a second.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion on the warrants.
Yes, I have a question. Page 78, police tires. We have fairly new cars, except for the older one. What are we buying tires for? $1,020
Every other
40.
year, instead of having summer and winter tires, they now buy winter tires, which saves money.
So they
And
drive
just-
them year
They
round.
wear them for a year, and the
Okay.
next year they buy new ones. It's cheaper than having summer and.
I
winter.
just was asking.
Thanks, Ray.
I was gonna say, we got cars with little or no miles on them and we're buying tires already.
Two older cars needed new tires.
Any other questions or discussion on the warrants?
Got one more.
Go ahead.
Why did Ray get 2 checks? Are you that good?
No,
And Suzanne
I
did
had-
too.
I had a reimbursement.
Yeah, so I decided to just pay Ray double this week. He's just such a great employee. He had a lot of vacation remaining, and so did another employee. And we currently have a highway worker in training
Yeah.
that prefer Ray not to take an additional week before the end of the calendar year. So we came to an agreement on that last week of vacation. He had 2 weeks remaining. We paid out 1 week, and he will take 1 week before the end of the year.
Is that the same with the office?
Yes, similar thing, but that's to cover what we thought.
Remember the
Yeah.
executive session?
Yes, I know, but the fiscal year doesn't end until
I know, vacation's on.
April
calendar.
30th.
Vacations
As
calendar.
of December 30th, we lose our vacation time. I lose my vacation time if I don't use it.
But it's not, that's not our pay year though.
If we wanna change it.
That's not
we
fair.
can, but we can't change it now. Because it's far more I mean, at least it's all in the same, it's all the same now, because before, when I first got here, it was on your
I was just
anniversary.
picking.
Okay. So, it was on your
Everybody was all over the place.
So we,
Oh, God.
yeah, anyways,
That was all I had. I just wanted to know why they got 2 pays, that's all.
yep, that's what it was.
Sorry, the week
It-
before I had a mileage reimbursement.
And I'll let the board know that I made that, I'll let the board know that I made the same decision on the town manager's, time, coming up. I authorized the same thing. He can't do that for himself, so that, I authorized that today. Any other discussion on the warrants? Hearing none, all in favor of the warrants signify by saying aye. Aye. Any other business? I need a motion to change the meeting dates of January the 1st and January the 15th to January the 2nd and January the 16th.
A motion to change board meeting dates to January 2nd and January 16th for the month of January 2024.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Those work okay for you, right, Brandon? Those
Yes.
dates?
Yep.
And everybody else okay with coming in the day after New Year's? The meeting? Okay.
Good day.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, you just said that you're confident that the budgets are all set for the 2 meetings in December. You think that they're gonna be wrapped up. Are we hearing anything about capital, or special articles or capital equipment purchases for those meetings?
We have one from Ray, that we'll be looking at
Same
on,
one we discussed last meeting.
yeah, on 12/4. I didn't have enough time to.
The
get
bucket
that
loader?
for this meeting.
See, I remember. Backhoe, whatever.
You're close.
Other than that, everything's settled. The only numbers I'm waiting for is workers' comp and insurance.
Anything else from the state that comes later?
Nothing. Yeah, we're all set.
So those highlighted ones were the ones that were just guesses then?
Estimates,
Okay.
based on prior year trends.
Guesstimates.
Yeah.
The insurance is waiting for vehicle insurance, not health insurance.
Right, yeah, I know.
Kelly, you can check my work, because when we get the actual numbers, then you can like compare the two and see how close we got.
Okay. Yeah, oh, I will.
I appreciate you being the hawk on the numbers. I really do.
Move to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.